Hi, this is Rick Pears. Welcome to Conscious Reality Creator. Today we're going to talk about trust. And the main thing that I want to get you to understand at the beginning is the reason that you're not trusting others is because you're not trustworthy. And that's what I really want you to understand in this video. And the only way that you're going to be more trusting is if you become more trustworthy. And I'm going to go into that. And by the way, I crashed on my motorcycle last week, so you're going to be seeing this white bandage flying around. Sorry about that, but I just wanted to say. I want to say, what would make it hard to trust? We have a socio-political meme that operates in such a way that society is created to keep away chaos. That's the primary function of society. Now, if I create this thing to keep away chaos, what happens is the system wants you to trust the system. Don't trust yourself, trust the system. And then I defer to my religion, or I defer to the government, or I defer to an authority figure of some sort. I'm never going to learn to trust myself better. The adolescent inside, it's either, well, if I trust me or do I trust you? Which is it? It's both. You're learning to trust yourself and you're learning to trust others. And so the adolescent doesn't know how to do both of those things. It's either one or the other. Either I have to trust myself or I'm going to have to trust them. No, it's both. You have to try to deal with that paradox that seeming to be a paradox to the adolescent. A lot of people don't trust because they substitute trust for perfection. So what they do is they're like, if I'm perfect and I do everything, then I'm going to be trustworthy. And matter of fact, if you're perfect, I'll be able to trust you. If you're not perfect, I won't be able to trust you. That's not trust. Trust, people are forgivable, and when you're trusting the relationships you have with people, because that's really what you're able to control. You're not really able to control people. Let's say you can also control them in a sense. That's not the right wording, but you all can take responsibility for people's emotions. Oftentimes, you're only responsible for your own emotions. It's not your problem. You're also creating that's the circumstance. So at another level, it is also your responsibility if somebody's not happy in the interaction with me. I want them to be happy. I want to feel like I'm trustworthy, so I'm going to move through this fully in order to be more trustworthy, right? So perfection is a big problem. The adolescent loves it because that makes it easy. I don't have to learn to trust if I go for perfection. If I'm just asking everybody to be perfect, then I substituted that. But it's not real trust. Because, when you trust somebody, they might let you down. But that's why you want to trust the relationship you have with that person. They could actually let you down and they could survive and you'll grow and change from that. So people are forgivable. And trust needs to be fluid. It needs to be flexible. It's not black and white, like I trust you, because that's the next thing. People control. I'm trusting you. I'm trusting you're going to do this right. I'm trusting you. I'm very sensitive and I'm trusting you right now. You're basically controlling them, trying to push them to make sure that they do what you want them to do. You cannot control trust either. Blind faith is another place. Blind faith is a place that people, I'm just going to trust. I'm going to trust my higher self. I'm going to trust the universe. But what that sets you up is to blame. Because if I go at it with blind faith and it doesn't work out, I'm going to blame somebody. I'm going to blame somebody that didn't come out right. Because I really didn't go through the steps of trusting. I just decided, well, I'm just going to trust and we'll see what happens. Most likely you're going to lose in that situation. You have very little responsibility. And as a matter of fact, it's a way to avoid responsibility. Is to use blind faith instead of trust. Some people want to use a mistrust to punish people. Oh, I trusted you last time and you weren't trustworthy, so now I can control you. Now I can punish you. I can make you jump through hoops. Also, what people do is if I had a bad thing let's say I had my last relationship, somebody cheated on me. And I'm coming into this relationship tell them, you better be trustworthy. You better not mess up because you're asking this person to make up for the past pain. And so you're controlling them. You're trying to control the situation and trying to get them to correct the problem that you had last time. That's not appropriate. But these things make it hard to trust because these are common reactions to substitute instead of trust. So those things, you'll probably realize one or two of those you're all doing. But you want to realize I'm not really trusting when I'm asking for perfection or I'm trying to control people. That's not what it's for. What it's for is to gain greater self-esteem. And so it's a critical thing to learn right now because so much seems untrustworthy. So much around us is reflecting an untrustworthiness because most people don't really understand how to do it. And one of the reasons that you're not trusting is because you're not trustworthy and you know it. And so that is your biggest obstacle, and it is your biggest resource to learning to trust. To basically understand that when you shortcut things like, yeah, nobody's looking, I'll just do it this way, or hey, I'll just do this because nobody's going to find out. Inside, you know you're not trustworthy when you do that. So it makes it impossible to trust yourself, which makes it virtually impossible to trust anybody else outside of yourself. So self-trust is critical. You want to understand also that trust is not only a skill set, it's also an art form. And in any art form, you need discipline and the conviction that goes with the discipline. You need to be patient and have humility. To be patient with yourself as you grow this and have the humility that things change and I can change. So that's important in art, to have patience with the thing that you're trying to come around with. You also need to concentrate. And you need to concentrate with an intensity. Part of the skill is to understand when you are learning to trust, you want to be stepping from your strengths, your resources, your internal sources and resources, which are your responsibility, your empowerment, power itself, your character, your integrity, your magic, your majesty, right? These are resources inside of yourself that these things are going to teach you better how to trust. Because you need to have some kind of armature in order to start observing where you're weak. And so if you're coming from your better self, if I'm really coming from my empowerment, my authority, my responsibility, these are sources that you resource yourself in. These things will help you trust better. So the basic of trust, it's a synergy between three different energies. And so these energies have to be in a balance all the time. They have to be well balanced. And that is belief, hope, and reliance. Those have to be constantly navigated to be in balance because the synergy of balance in these three things creates the environment for trust. Now, what you're relying on are your beliefs. And so you take action on that, right? So beliefs, and I've said this before, are opinions you hold with conviction. They're not true, they're not based in facts. They're just opinions that you really feel like that's the truth and that's what I'm going to believe, right? So you have beliefs. Hope is a synergy between anticipation and expectation. It is the masculine and female in a harmonic creative dance. Because an expectation is my vision to see outside myself to create the future that I want. And the masculine is the anticipation that I'm going to get it. I'm going to get this. So trust is understanding that I must be good at hope. I must have an expectation in the future what I want. I must know that I'm moving into that. I must look at my beliefs and my reliance on my beliefs. I need to be able to lean and take action on my beliefs and my hope. And this has to stay in a balance. You have to be navigating that in a balanced way. If you apply these things where it's appropriate, regardless of the outcome, positive or negative, you will have gained and fostered greater trust. So if you stop and think, what are my expectations? Can I hang my hat that this is going to happen, this thing? And because it's based in my beliefs. Like say I'm hoping, expecting, and I'm like, I really can't find my expectation. I really can't feel like it's really going to happen. You got to look into the beliefs because you're holding a negative belief in there about the thing, right? So that's why in order for me to rely on myself, I've got to be checking that. If I've got an expectation, an anticipation, and it doesn't feel like it's real or it's not really going to happen, that shows you that your beliefs are out. So now I have to understand, what is this belief that I'm playing out here? So in order to learn to trust better, you're going to have a construct. And that construct has 4 sides. In order for you to understand, this is specifically, and all 4 of these things must be in play. If there's 3, it's not an issue of trust. If there's 2, not an issue of trust. All 4 of these constructs must be in place. 1, the outcome needs to be based in the future. Like a lot of people, something will happen and they're like, oh, I'm so glad I trusted myself. It totally worked out. And it's like, you didn't really trust yourself if you weren't doing it first. You don't trust yourself after the fact, but people like to play that, yeah, I created this beautiful reality. I created this and this. And they're like, well, how did you do that? Well, I just trusted myself. Well, what are you trusting? They don't have any, because after it worked out, they say, I trusted myself. Trust is before the thing that you're wanting shows up. So it has to be based in the future. Now, it also has to be a positive and a negative side to the outcome. The third wall is the negative has to be greater than the positive is positive. What you're doing is when I get to the point where, hey, this is not giving me any real positive outcome, but the downside is really big, that's a situation of trust. The downside is huge and the upside is negligible. Now you're trusting. The easiest example I can give is in a relationship when you've got like a deep secret. And you're like, if I tell them this, there's a good chance they're going to break up with me, or they're going to leave me, or they're going to see me less than. So in that risk, there's more to lose. It's a greater sense of risk because it's out of balance. Wow, the positive is here, but the negative is like way up here. Now trust is real. The 4th position is you have to honestly expect the positive result. That's where the expectation needs to be fostered and nurtured. So those 4 things need to be in place in order for it to be something that's going to garner greater trust. So you have to know those 4 things. Now, one of the ways that you're going to understand, like a lot of people will trust their intellect, or they'll trust their intuition. I just always do what my intuition says, and that's the way it works out, right? You don't really want to operate so simply. Now, a lot of people don't use all their facility to measure their experience. When you're going to trust something, because you're going to put a lot into this, and it's scary because it's in the future, and I have to expect that it's going to happen, and it's going to have a positive or negative result, and the negative is to be greater than the positive is positive, right? I have to be comfortable, and the way to be comfortable is this. There's 4 parts of yourself that you need to understand how to utilize when making a quality decision and to learn how to create an environment for trust. You have your intellect, like what am I thinking about this situation? What are my thoughts? I have to know what those are because a lot of times you're going to be running all kinds of negative thoughts about what's going on and why you shouldn't do it and what is this person going to say and da 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 da. Notice what you're thinking. Notice what you're feeling. What are the feelings that I'm having? The hard feelings, not intuitive feelings like I'm getting, no, like my anger, my rage, my disappointment. Raw feelings. I want to know, what are my feelings? What is my intuition telling me about this I'm about to trust? And lastly, what is my body telling me? Some people have fantastic bodies when it comes to knowing not to do something. Now, when I say that, it's not that because I feel all these negatives, I am not going to trust you. That's not what you're going for. What you're going for is to resolve all those things. Like, if my intuition, I don't fear any problems with my intuition, and my feelings are pretty good, I have a couple thoughts I've got to change. Noticing, how is my body responding? You want to resolve the information before you trust. When I say to resolve that, it's like, I have to understand, why is my body reacting this way? It's my knee is hurting or my throat is getting stuff. So there's something about communication here. There's something to be able to take it apart metaphorically so I can resolve, so I can make my body feel better. Because in the process of resolving it, my body's going to feel better. And if I can bring that homeostasis back to my beingness through these 4 arenas, I can feel much more trusting. I can trust myself better that, look, everything, I did my best. I did everything to handle all my reservations about this trust. And you will gain greater self-trust. You have these 4 sets of circumstances. When those 4 sets of circumstances are in place, this is a chance for me to trust myself better. Let me check these 4 parts: my body, my intellect, my intuition, my feelings. Let me check in with that, and let me resolve those things. Once you've resolved those things, and once you understand this is a time to trust myself, now you trust yourself. Now you do it. And whatever the outcome, even if it's negative, and when you find out later that it was a mistake, you will have garnered greater self-trust by doing it with a system, a way to like garner greater trust, to teach you how to trust instead of you just got to trust. Just trust. That's all you got to do. The easiest way to trust more, is to become more trustworthy. Because when you start doing all the right things underneath, your value goes up as a person. Your personal value is like, I do what I say. I always do this way because I feel good. I have a sense of character, and I have my principle, and I have my integrity, and I have my empowerment, all based in the way that I trust myself. And so after you start reeling, you are trustworthy, you want to become a person that you know you're worthy of trust. I'm worthy of that trust because I do the right thing when nobody's looking. What that does is when you go into a situation, you know you're trustworthy. And so when you will reach out to be more trusting of someone else. And you'll be able to show them, like in, not so much by, I'm going to show you how well I trust, but by the person you're being. By a person of integrity, a person with character, a person who's honest and vulnerably honest. These are all what come out of the value of being a trustworthy person. So the easiest way to do it is just keep working on being trustworthy, because that is a direct reflection of your value, and you will be a trustworthy person, and that will allow you greater trust. Because what happens is when you're operating through values in the system that you've created, you know that even if they make a mistake, I'm still trusting myself. I know what to do in this circumstance. I know how to be a more loving person. I know how to navigate this problem, this breakdown that I may have when I'm trusting. But you'll keep feeling more value in doing that. So that's why even if you go and you do all these things and it doesn't work out, you will still feel a greater sense of trust. And that's what you really want, because once you garner a sense of trust and trustworthiness, you can now live your life loud. You can push and you can go and you can do what you want, because now I feel I'm trustworthy. And you know what? I know how to recognize when somebody else is trustworthy, and I know how to give my trust to somebody who is trustworthy. It's not foolish for me to trust. I know why I'm trusting. I know how to do it myself, and I know what's lacking in the relationship, if there happens to be something lacking. So it enriches your life. It enriches your meditations. It allows you to trust yourself, trust others, trust my life, and eventually be more trusting of the world around me. So I'm going to give you a very seemingly easy technique to foster greater trust, because everybody has unconscious and subconscious blocks around trust. And a way to access these things in an elegant manner is to do this technique. You want to gather your own desire for trust. You have to start using the reality creating tools. Desire, expectation, and imagination that I want to be more trustworthy. Once you garner that desire, one of the things you can do, because there are going to be limitations in your subconscious and your unconscious about trust. It's not that hard, but it is tricky. You're basically, when you go to sleep at night, you're going to ask for my blockages around trust to be removed in my dreams. And you're going to ask that. When you wake up in the morning, you're going to thank yourself and your guides for whatever healing you got that night. Now, the key thing that has to happen is you need to do this in 7 consecutive nights. 7 consecutive nights, I'd say put a note by your night table. Because the first time I was doing this, it took me months to get through this. Because I would get through 6 and I would forget the 7th time. And then I started recognizing, like, yeah, you don't know how much healing you need. You can get it done in 7 nights, but if you do it in 5 and you make a mistake, you go back to 1. But you have to understand, that's not because you're screwing up, it's because you need more healing than 7 nights was going to give you. And if you don't thank in the morning 7 consecutive times, you start over. So even though it sounds, wow, that's kind of elegant, kind of easy, it's not, because if your desire isn't fostered, if you haven't got I want to be more trustworthy, my desire is such that I want to be more trustworthy, you are not going to carry out the 7 days, because you're going to have to be conscious and aware in order to carry out the 7 days. And you've got to be aware enough that when I go to sleep, I'm asking, and when I wake up, I'm thanking. And so that is a very powerful technique to alter the subconscious conscious beliefs that you may have inhibiting you around trust.